The alley behind Lincoln Street smelled like fryer oil and wet cardboard. A neon diner sign flickered across cracked brick walls. Dumpsters sat crooked beside a chain-link fence. Someone had sprayed fresh graffiti over an older mural. Most nights here looked exactly the same. Fishing boats rocked gently beside rusted metal cleats. A gull screamed somewhere above the dark water. A buoy bell clanged far out in the channel. Nothing dramatic ever happened at Harbor Point. Tom worked the night shift more often than anyone else. He liked the quiet hours before sunrise. Less boat traffic meant easier casting lines. He stood alone near the pier's end, checking crab traps. His flashlight beam moved slowly across the surface. The water looked black and ordinary. Then his boots scraped across a wet plank. Something flashed below the pier. Tom froze immediately. The ocean beneath him glowed for half a second. Not white, not blue, bright green, almost like neon paint underwater. He leaned over the railing carefully. The glow faded as quickly as it appeared. Dark water returned. Tom frowned and nudged the railing again. The plank vibrated under his weight. Below him, the sea erupted with green sparks. Thousands of tiny lights flickered and vanished instantly. Tom laughed quietly to himself. Probably some weird reflection from the dock lights. But the dock lights were behind him, and they were yellow. The water stayed dark again, calm, silent. Tom tossed a pebble over the edge. The splash exploded into glowing green fire beneath the pier. For a moment, the Atlantic looked alive. Then the light disappeared, and the water returned to ordinary black. Tom stared down longer than he planned. Something about it felt wrong. He checked the time on his phone. 2:14 a.m. The tide was coming in slowly. The glowing ocean waited quietly below the pier. 2 hours later, Tom was gone. His truck still sat beside the seafood shack. The driver's door hung open slightly. Coffee inside the cup holder had gone cold. Tom never missed the sunrise catch. The morning fishermen noticed immediately. They walked the pier calling his name. Nothing answered except waves hitting wooden pylons. One man noticed something strange near the edge. A streak of green shimmered briefly in the water. Then it vanished again. Deputies arrived before noon. Sheriff's trucks blocked the entrance to Harbor Point. Yellow tape fluttered along the wooden railings. Deputy Carla questioned the fishermen carefully. Everyone repeated the same story. Tom worked late. Tom stayed near the end of the pier. Then Tom disappeared. No splash was reported. No scream. No fight. Just the strange glowing water. Carla leaned over the railing slowly. Sunlight made the ocean look harmless. She kicked the wood gently with her boot. Nothing happened. The water remained perfectly normal. One fisherman cleared his throat nervously. He dropped a metal wrench over the side. The wrench hit the water loudly. For half a second, the sea exploded into bright green light. Deputy Carla stepped back instinctively. What the hell was that? Someone whispered. The glow faded instantly again. The ocean returned to dull gray waves. Divers searched the harbor for hours. They found Tom's tackle box drifting near the rocks. His fishing rod floated 20 yards offshore, but Tom himself never appeared. The glowing water became the only real clue, and nobody had a good explanation. 3 days later, the official answer arrived. The sheriff's office called a short press conference. Reporters gathered beside the marina office. Sheriff Mark spoke calmly into several microphones. Mr. Tom likely slipped during nighttime fishing activity. He paused briefly and cleared his throat. The glowing water is a known natural ocean phenomenon. A marine biologist from a nearby university stood beside him. Her name was Dr. Ellen Brooks. She explained the light quickly. Certain plankton can glow when disturbed. The effect is called bioluminescence. She compared it to tiny underwater fireflies. When waves or objects move through water, they flash briefly. Perfectly natural, perfectly harmless. Reporters scribbled notes and nodded. The sheriff continued speaking. The plankton glow probably appeared when Tom fell. Strong currents near the pier could hide a body quickly. Cold Atlantic water made survival unlikely. The case, officially, was considered an accident. Search efforts stopped that afternoon. Tom's truck was towed away quietly. His family planned a memorial the following week. Most people accepted the explanation. But Harbor Point fishermen remained uneasy. They had seen glowing water before, sometimes during warm summer nights offshore, but never this bright, never this green, and never exactly under the pier. One fisherman returned after midnight 2 days later. He stood silently where Tom used to fish. He dropped a pebble into the dark water. Green light erupted again beneath the pier. The glow spread outward like liquid neon. The fisherman stepped back slowly. Something about the light felt deliberate, like the ocean was answering a signal. And somewhere beyond the harbor channel, a small boat engine started quietly. Morning sunlight poured through the wide laboratory windows. Rows of glass tanks glowed softly under fluorescent lamps. Inside them drifted clouds of microscopic life. Dr. Ryan Carter adjusted a microscope carefully. His fingers moved slowly, never rushing delicate work. He watched tiny shapes pulse across the slide. Most people never noticed plankton. Ryan spent his life studying them. He worked for the Coastal Marine Research Center, a modest federal lab 2 miles from Harbor Point. His specialty was bioluminescent dinoflagellates, tiny organisms capable of producing flashes of light. Ryan tapped the microscope camera gently. A bright blue spark flashed across the monitor. He smiled slightly. The culture was healthy today. Across the room, a graduate assistant stirred seawater samples. Ryan walked over with a clipboard and stopwatch. "Shake it harder," he said calmly. The assistant swirled the flask again. The water burst into dozens of blue flashes. Ryan wrote numbers quickly beside the sample label. Light intensity increased with turbulence, exactly as expected. He repeated the test with 3 different containers. Each time he changed only one variable: water temperature, salinity, flow speed. Ryan never trusted guesses. He trusted controlled experiments. Outside the lab windows, the Atlantic glittered calmly. The same ocean filled every tank inside this building. Ryan saved the data file and leaned back slightly. Bioluminescent plankton were predictable creatures. Disturb the water, and they glow. Stop the motion, and darkness returns immediately. Simple physics, simple biology. Ryan liked problems with clear mechanisms, because nature almost always followed rules. The email arrived shortly after lunch. Subject line: Harbor Point Incident Inquiry. Ryan opened it without much curiosity. By the second paragraph, he stopped chewing. A fisherman missing near the pier. Witnesses reporting bright green glowing water. Ryan read the message again slowly. The sheriff's office wanted confirmation of plankton activity. Basically, they needed a scientist to support their conclusion. Ryan leaned back and stared at the screen. Option 1 was easy. Reply politely. Confirm that glowing plankton exist. Close the message. Case solved on paper. Option 2 meant visiting Harbor Point personally. Late nights. Field samples. Probably pointless work. Ryan preferred laboratories to police investigations. Still, one detail bothered him quietly. The report described bright green flashes. Most dinoflagellates produced blue light, not green. Ryan opened a research database quickly. Several species could shift toward green wavelengths, but the glow described in the report sounded unusually strong. Too strong for calm harbor water. Ryan rubbed his temple thoughtfully. He could ignore it and return to routine experiments, or he could drive 2 miles to the pier. The lab clock ticked loudly on the wall. Ryan sighed and grabbed his field kit. "Cancel tomorrow's cultures," he told the assistant. "Where are you going?" she asked. Ryan slung a cooler over his shoulder. "To look at glowing water," he replied. The pier looked different at night. The seafood shack lights hummed over empty parking spaces. Wind rattled loose chains along the railing. Ryan arrived just after midnight. He carried 2 coolers and a waterproof flashlight. Scientific investigations often began with boring routines. Step 1 was always observation. Ryan crouched near the pier edge carefully. He lowered a clear sampling bottle into the water. The ocean looked dark and ordinary. He sealed the bottle and placed it inside the cooler. Next, he tested temperature and salinity. Both values matched normal coastal water perfectly. Ryan frowned slightly. Healthy plankton usually preferred warmer layers. Harbor Point water tonight felt surprisingly cold. He wrote the numbers anyway. Then he walked slowly toward the pier's end. Tom's usual fishing spot remained marked with police tape. Ryan ducked under the ribbon without hesitation. He switched off his flashlight. Darkness swallowed the wooden planks immediately. Ryan waited for his eyes to adjust. Then he kicked the pier gently with his boot. The ocean exploded with green sparks below him. Thousands of microscopic flashes pulsed through the water. Ryan leaned over the railing slowly. The glow looked brighter than laboratory cultures, much brighter. He dropped a small metal nut into the sea. The splash triggered another glowing burst. Ryan watched carefully this time. The light spread outward in a long streak, not a cloud, a narrow moving trail, as if something had recently passed through the water. Ryan checked the calm harbor surface again. No boats moved nearby, yet the glowing trail kept drifting slowly away from the pier. Ryan whispered quietly into the dark. That shouldn't happen. Morning fog hung low above the small harbor marina. Ryan parked beside a row of commercial fishing boats. Diesel engines coughed awake along the docks. He carried a sealed cooler toward the bait shop. The shop owner, Joe, recognized him immediately. "Scientist guy from the lab, right?" Joe asked casually. Ryan nodded and placed a water sample on the counter. "Have you noticed bright glowing water lately?" Joe scratched his beard thoughtfully. "Yeah, actually," he said slowly. Ryan looked up sharply. "Not just by the pier." Joe continued quietly. Ryan waited without interrupting. Joe pointed toward the open channel outside the marina. "Last week, a couple boats complained about weird glowing wakes." Ryan frowned. "Boat wakes glow all the time with plankton," he replied. Joe shook his head. "This was different." "How different?" Ryan asked carefully. Joe leaned forward slightly. "The glow stayed behind the boat for minutes." Ryan blinked slowly. "That shouldn't happen," he said. Joe shrugged. "One captain said his prop wash looked like neon paint." Ryan stared at the sample bottles silently. Lingering glow meant suspended turbulence in the water. But Harbor Point currents were weak. Nothing should hold turbulence that long. Joe continued talking while cleaning knives. And another weird thing, he added. Ryan looked up again. The glowing trails always showed up at night, Joe said. Late night. Around 2 or 3, Ryan felt a small knot tighten in his chest. Tom disappeared around 2 in the morning. Ryan closed the cooler slowly. The glowing water now appeared in 2 different places, under the pier and behind moving boats offshore, but the patterns made no obvious sense yet. That afternoon, Ryan returned to the laboratory quietly. Sunlight reflected across the glass tanks again. His assistant, Mia, leaned over a microscope. "Did you find your glowing mystery?" she asked. Ryan dropped his cooler on the counter. "Maybe," he said. Mia grinned. "That sounds like a scientist's no." Ryan poured harbor water into a testing flask. The room lights dimmed automatically for observation. Mia watched the cloudy liquid carefully. Ryan stirred it gently with a glass rod. Blue flashes appeared instantly. Normal dinoflagellate response. Nothing unusual yet. Mia leaned closer to the flask. "Pretty," she said quietly. Ryan nodded absently. His mind still replayed the glowing trails Joe described. Mia tapped the glass with her finger. The plankton flashed again briefly. Then the light faded almost instantly. "Fireflies underwater," Mia said casually. Ryan froze. "What did you say?" "Fireflies underwater," she repeated, confused. Ryan stared at the dark flask again. Fireflies flash when disturbed, but their glow fades immediately afterward. Dinoflagellates behave almost exactly the same way, unless the water keeps moving. Ryan suddenly imagined a boat cutting through plankton clouds, the propeller violently stirring the water behind it. A glowing wake following the turbulence trail. He turned toward Mia slowly. "Unless something keeps stirring the water," Ryan whispered. Mia frowned. "What would do that?" Ryan looked toward the harbor through the window. "That's exactly the question," he said quietly. That night, Ryan returned to Harbor Point again. This time he brought more equipment. 3 sampling jars, a portable water pump, and a battery-powered stirrer. Scientific curiosity required controlled experiments. Ryan tied a rope around the pump intake hose. Then he lowered the hose into the harbor water. The pump began pushing seawater into a transparent tank. Ryan switched off his flashlight immediately. Darkness filled the pier again. The tank water glowed faintly with plankton flashes. Ryan started the stirrer slowly. Green sparks erupted inside the container. Expected reaction. Ryan increased the stirring speed gradually. The glow became brighter. Still expected. Then Ryan stopped the stirrer completely. The flashes vanished instantly. Again, exactly as predicted. Ryan repeated the test several times. Start turbulence. Glow appears. Stop motion. Darkness returns. Normal dinoflagellate behavior. But Ryan wasn't finished yet. He grabbed a long metal rod from his kit. Carefully, he plunged the rod into the harbor water. Then he dragged it slowly beside the pier. A glowing trail followed the rod instantly. Ryan stopped moving the rod. The glowing trail vanished almost immediately. Ryan tried again. This time he moved the rod faster. The glowing streak stretched farther behind it. Ryan stopped suddenly again. Darkness swallowed the water, exactly like laboratory behavior. Ryan stood silently beside the railing. Then he remembered Joe's description again. A glowing wake lasting minutes behind boats. Ryan leaned over the rail slowly. Something in the harbor water disturbed the surface again. A faint glowing trail drifted slowly through the channel. No boat passed nearby. No wind disturbed the water. Yet the glowing streak kept moving forward slowly. Ryan whispered quietly into the darkness. That turbulence shouldn't exist. Ryan rolled a whiteboard into the laboratory meeting room. Deputy Carla stood nearby with folded arms. 2 Marine officers watched from the back wall. Ryan placed 3 glass containers on the table. Each one held seawater from Harbor Point. "Before we talk about the fishermen," Ryan said calmly, "we need to understand the light." He turned off the room lights. The containers faded into darkness. Ryan picked up the first jar and shook it gently. Blue sparks flashed through the water immediately. "Dinoflagellates," he said quietly. "Microscopic plankton drift through coastal waters every night. Inside their cells lives a chemical alarm system. When water suddenly moves, they trigger a light reaction. The reaction uses 2 molecules, luciferin and luciferase." Ryan wrote the words slowly on the board. "The movement activates an enzyme reaction." He continued calmly. "Luciferin oxidizes rapidly and releases energy as light, usually bright blue light." The officers leaned closer to the table. Ryan shook the jar again. Another brief flash burst across the water. "Important detail," Ryan added quietly. "The light appears only during sudden turbulence. Stop the motion, and the glow disappears immediately." Ryan placed the jar down again. Then he pointed toward the harbor map on the wall. "But Harbor Point reports something unusual," he continued. Witnesses described glowing trails lasting several minutes. Normal plankton cannot glow that long, not without continuous water disturbance. Ryan switched on a small electric motor beside the jars. A spinning propeller began churning the water slowly. Green flashes erupted continuously around the propeller blades. As long as turbulence existed, the plankton kept flashing. Ryan stopped the motor instantly. The glow vanished again. He looked toward Deputy Carla. Something underwater keeps stirring that harbor water, Ryan said. Carla frowned slightly. You're saying something mechanical? She asked. Ryan nodded slowly. Exactly, he replied. And whatever it is moves through the harbor at night. Ryan spread several photographs across the table. Satellite images, harbor maps, boat traffic logs. Deputy Carla leaned over them carefully. Ryan pointed to a glowing trail recorded by a fisherman's phone. This video was taken 2 nights before Tom disappeared, he said. The trail stretched across dark water like liquid neon. Ryan traced the glowing path with his finger. Notice the direction, he said quietly. The trail moved away from Harbor Point Pier, toward the deeper shipping channel. Carla crossed her arms thoughtfully. So a boat caused it, she said. Ryan shook his head slowly. A normal boat wake spreads and fades quickly, he explained. But this trail remains narrow, and it stays bright longer than expected. Ryan placed another photograph beside it. This one showed Tom's fishing position on the pier. Tom stood here that night, Ryan continued. Carla nodded. He always fished there, she said. Ryan tapped the map again, and he looked directly down this channel. Carla leaned closer to the chart. The glowing trail followed that exact line. Ryan placed a final diagram beside the photos, a small underwater propeller system used in remote underwater vehicles. These motors create narrow turbulence columns, Ryan explained. Water keeps churning behind them for minutes, enough to keep plankton glowing continuously. Carla's expression hardened slowly. You're describing an underwater drone, she said. Ryan nodded once. And someone is driving it through the harbor at night. Carla looked toward the pier map again. Tom's fishing spot overlooked the exact path. The realization settled quietly between them. Tom didn't fall into glowing water. Tom saw something moving through it. Carla requested harbor security footage that evening. Ryan watched beside her inside the station office. Several hours of recordings played silently. Most clips showed ordinary fishing boats leaving at dawn. Nothing unusual appeared at first glance. Then Ryan noticed a pattern. One small boat left the marina every night around 2. The same time glowing trails appeared offshore. Carla paused the video frame carefully. The boat belonged to a man named Derek Mills, local charter captain, occasional cargo contractor. Ryan studied the footage closely. Derek's boat always left without running bright deck lights. It moved slowly through the harbor channel. Carla pulled Derek's records quickly. Several minor smuggling investigations appeared in his file. Nothing proven, nothing charged. Ryan leaned back quietly. Think about the glowing plankton, he said slowly. Carla nodded once. At night, the ocean remained completely dark. Any moving boat stayed nearly invisible, unless something disturbed the plankton. Ryan pointed to the glowing trail video again. The turbulence reveals motion instantly, he explained. A glowing wake shows exactly where something moves, even in complete darkness. Carla understood immediately. Someone used the plankton like a radar screen, she said. Ryan nodded slowly. Exactly. An underwater drone could travel silently through the harbor. Its propeller would create glowing trails behind it. A smuggler could track it easily from a boat above. Carla stared at Derek's paused video frame. And Tom was standing on the pier, she said quietly. Ryan finished the thought calmly. He watched the glowing trail appear beneath him. Carla exhaled slowly, and Derek realized someone had seen it. Carla spent the next morning digging through harbor records. Ryan sat beside her with a laptop full of plankton data. Shipping permits filled the screen in endless rows. Most vessels carried seafood, fuel, or equipment. Then Carla found something odd. Several cargo entries listed small sealed containers, declared as marine survey instruments. Ryan leaned closer to the monitor. Who shipped them? He asked. Carla pointed to the transport company name, Mills Coastal Charters. Ryan exhaled slowly. Derek Mills again. The shipments moved through Harbor Point every 2 weeks, always late at night, always loaded quietly. Carla opened another file. Satellite tracking logs appeared on the screen. Several small boats followed identical offshore routes. The pattern looked deliberate. Ryan studied the route lines carefully. They ran along shallow coastal zones, perfect places to hide underwater cargo containers. Carla leaned back slowly. This isn't just one smuggling run, she said quietly. Ryan nodded. Underwater drones could move packages silently along the coast. No radar signature, no surface wake, only a faint glowing trail in plankton water. Invisible to almost everyone, except a fisherman standing above the channel. Ryan zoomed into the harbor map again. Multiple glowing sightings appeared along the same route. Different nights, different witnesses. Carla closed the laptop slowly. This network could run for miles along the coast, she said. Ryan nodded once, and the glowing plankton revealed it accidentally. What looked like a strange ocean mystery suddenly felt bigger, much bigger. 2 nights later, Carla returned to Harbor Point Pier. Ryan stood beside her in the darkness. Police boats waited quietly beyond the marina. The tide rolled slowly beneath the wooden planks. Ryan watched the water carefully. 2:14. Carla whispered, checking her watch. Right on schedule. A faint boat engine hummed somewhere offshore. Moments later, the water flickered green beneath the pier. The glowing trail appeared again, long, narrow, moving steadily through the channel. Ryan pointed silently toward the harbor entrance. A dark boat silhouette followed the glowing path slowly. Derek Mills stood at the wheel. Carla raised a radio quietly. Now, she said. Police lights burst alive across the marina. Engines roared toward Derek's boat immediately. The glowing trail brightened violently behind the underwater propeller. Derek cut his engine suddenly. The water turned black again. Ryan stepped forward under the pier light. He held a clear jar of harbor water. He shook it gently. Blue sparks flashed inside the glass. Ryan looked toward Derek across the water. Dinoflagellates glow when turbulence disturbs them, he said calmly. Derek said nothing. Ryan continued quietly. Your drone propeller created a glowing trail. Carlos officers pulled the underwater device from the water. Its propeller blades still spun slowly. Ryan nodded toward the machine. You used living plankton to track your cargo at night. Derek stared silently at the pier. He never said a word. But he didn't deny it either. A week later, Harbor Point returned to normal routines. Fishing boats left the marina before sunrise again. The seafood shack reopened for breakfast crowds. Ryan walked slowly along the quiet pier. The ocean looked completely ordinary. Black water, rolling tide. Nothing unusual. He leaned over the railing carefully. Then he tapped the wooden plank with his boot. Green sparks flashed beneath the surface again. Tiny living alarms reacting to motion. Dinoflagellates had evolved that light for defense. The flash startles predators attacking their colony, a microscopic panic signal. For millions of years, the ocean used it silently until someone noticed a different purpose. Ryan watched the glow fade slowly back into darkness. Science had explained the mystery. No supernatural forces, no glowing chemicals, just biology reacting to turbulence. A simple reaction between luciferin and luciferase molecules, triggered by sudden motion in seawater. Yet that same reaction exposed a hidden crime. One fisherman saw the glowing trail that night, and the ocean answered with light. Ryan straightened slowly and looked across the harbor. The Atlantic stretched endlessly into the dark horizon. Somewhere out there, billions of plankton still drifted quietly, waiting for the next disturbance. Ryan tapped the railing again gently. Another burst of green light shimmered below. Then darkness returned, and Ryan wondered one last thing. How many other secrets has the ocean already revealed simply because something moved through glowing water?